Mind coach. No sweat. Yeah. Whew. Yeah. I just be talking that good. Still they gon' say that I'm bad. Yeah. We gon' go clean up the hood. I'm about to give them my lash. Soon as they look at the presents, they wanna bring up my past. Yeah. We be exposing them liars. I'm about to put them on blast. I will not apologize for it. I will not apologize for it. I just be talking that good. Still they gon' say that I'm bad. Yeah, we gon' go clean up the hood.
All right, peace and black power family. You already know what it is. We getting ready to start this debate going down with Elder Yarah and our brother Domo. Y'all see what the topic is. I'm gonna read it for y'all in a minute. Give me a minute. I'm looking for some powerful, strong rappers out there, and I need a nice, fiery rap song pertaining to the toughest environment to be in. You got to say that in the rap. This is the toughest environment to be in. Sa.neter Studios debate. Okay? We got to hit that. Give me a minute. We're going to get right to it. We got the debaters in the building already. And there we go. I got new music last night from my man. Peace. Shout out to you, brother. You already know what it is. We're going to start it off with the new music. Slam it or jam it, y'all. I'm going to say jam it because the brother went out his way to make this new music for me. So I'm going to say jam it. Here it goes.
Yeah, who are you that say that's on TV? Big dog, he the voice of the streets. Too much killing in the hood, why they creeps out the violence? Look at your little kids, how you say that's not your problem? Yeah, we gon' debate after that. What wait? Teach these brothers that they kings, maybe they won't have to dream. It's a new day, a new era. Time to fall in love with that black that you see up in that mirror, nigga. Peace and love, unity and power. But sit your ass down, it's for the scholars. Minute after minute, hour after hour, let me shout out my Yahweh. You can shout out what you lean on. We going live from your screen on. Grab a seat, get this knowledge when the team on. Better pay attention before you end up in detention. Let me mention who it be sa.neter TV. Black people, black girl, black power, sa.neter TV. We can reach now on sa.neter TV. If we each show up, what's stop sa.neter TV? Yeah, on sa.neter TV. Black man, I just hate you cause you hate me. And I ain't get you nothing, but you looking all shady. Maybe it's Mercedes or that beam in the driveway. Maybe I can show you how to get that pussy sideways. Tune in on that YouTube sa.neter TV. Yeah, we cooking in the kitchen, but it's no big feet. I can give you a million years, but you can't beat me. You should try to be yourself. We can show you all the steps. What's your name? Where you calling from? Who on the line? Open up what you calling for. What's on your mind? Dig up in that bag and drop a jewel for your people. Exposing all evil. On sa.neter TV.
All right, jam it. I say jam it because he took the effort. He went out his way and made the song for me. So I love the brother music. Shout out to my brother Lai in the building. Brother Lai. We got Amin Ra McCarthy Of course, we got the MVP, Chris Harris, knocking out you suckers, and you don't know where it came from. DMG, the poet, in the building. All right, I see my man Sterl World is in the building. Shout out to all the family. Cedric, man, I see you, Cedric. All right, Tamika Wan. All right, my brother Reese is in the building. Reese is in the building. This is going to be a powerful educational debate, y'all. This is going to be a powerful educational debate because I got two scholars up in the building. I got two brothers in the building who knows how to debate. One of them is one of the elders. We got Elder Yarah in the building. How you feeling, brother Elder Yarah? Unmute yourself.
Man, giving all praise to Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Man, I'm ready, man.
Brother, are you ready for this debate, brother? It's not no religion. No. It's not a Yahweh debate, but it's more it's dealing with the politics and stuff. So are you ready to step in this lane? Domo, I think Domo trapped you off, brother. Mm-hmm. You're stepping in his lane, man.
Every debate for me is a Yahweh debate.
Okay, all right, brother Domo. Peace and black power to you, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I've been waiting to get Yarah this smoke for a minute. So
yeah. So y'all been
talking about sacrifices and all of that. We're gonna have a sacrifice today.
Yeah.
So
5 years.
So Yarah, do you got a coin on you?
A coin?
Yeah.
For what?
I want you to flip that coin and call it. Just show the camera right where it's at.
I don't believe in luck.
So do you want to go first then? You want to go first?
Yeah, it don't matter.
All right. Domo, is it all right if he go first?
He can go first. I don't care. It don't matter.
Well, actually, I'm taking a negative position. So it'll be better.
Right.
Yeah, if he laid it out.
Okay.
Laid out like his
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So Domo, Elder Yarah, I'm going to give you 2 minutes for your opening round to lay down the groundwork to let the people know what it is, why are you here, what are you here to prove, all right? And so many times when I tell people I'm gonna give you 2 or 3 minutes to open up, they be on some other stuff. They not even opening up and letting the people prepare them to let them know what's coming. So brother, for you, you got 2 minutes in your opening argument, brother.
All right, you can start that 2 minutes after I share my screen.
Uh-oh.
Share my screen real quick.
I don't see your screen yet, brother. There you go.
There you
go. Time will start when you start talking. All right, it's loading up. It's loading up.
Never does that. Let's see. Okay. All right. You can start now, sa.neter.
Go ahead. You on.
All right. The shout out to Domo, man. Shout out to sa.neter Studios. Shout out to the chat, man. Again, giving all praise to Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, man. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in. This is going to be a very good debate. Should religion play a role in black politics? All right. So the title of the debate: should religion play a role in black politics? I want you guys to listen and look for these 3 topics, right? These 3 questions, these 3 understandings, the things that you're going to see from myself as well as my opponent. I'm going to be addressing these things that you're going to see in my opponent's argument. I promise you're going to see these things, right? Number 1, should religion play a role in black politics, specifically in local politics, right? It's the first question, and why? I will be answering that for you in this debate. Does white religious homogeneity, and I'll get into the definition of that for those who may have some difficulty pulling that out right now, but does white religious homogeneity influence the decisions of black religious voters? We're going to keep it a buck tonight, right? And the last thing that we're really going to look at is, does the religion of social justice, prosperity gospel, and black liberation theology divide black politics? These are the things we're going to look at. Now, those last three things, right? Prosperity gospel and black liberation theology, more so those things are dealing with more so Christian, but social justice, right, spans all black religions, right, that black people participate in as a whole in the society. So these are the three things I want you guys to listen distinctly for, right? We're going to get into some quantitative and qualitative documents, data. We're going to be talking about why these three key points in this debate are crucial to understanding the topic. Should religion play a role in black politics, specifically in local politics, right? Because we have to start this conversation at the grassroots, right?
Time. All right, Brother Domo. Time will start when you start speaking, brother. You got 2 minutes in your opening argument. Draw the picture. Let the people know what it is you're going to be proving here tonight.
All right, let me share my screen real quick. All right, you can go ahead and put it up, sir.
All right. I see it.
All right, my mouse acting a little wonky here. Come on now. All right, so you can go ahead and start the timer now. All right, so the question of today's debate is, should religion play a role in black politics, right? I'm going to keep it simple. There's two main arguments. My first argument will be that the divisions in religious ideology are replicated in our political ideologies, causing dissension that undermines our political strategies. Yes, we will be talking about the social gospel. We will be talking about black liberation theology. We'll be talking about the prosperity gospel. And we'll look at empirical data that shows how when those ideologies come into contact with the stances that are important to black people, we'll see through data that there is a clear disconnect. There are clashes, there are divisions, and they actually contest each other. So ultimately, the first reason why we should leave religion out of politics is because the divisions that we see in politics, you will see the divisions that we see in religion, you will see also replicate themselves in political ideologies when religious ideology is injected into those political conversations. The second argument is that everything that we complain about in terms of politics today has been facilitated by the black church, because it pushes political engagement with no substance. What we'll see is when we look at black people's voting habits, what matters to them, what drives political engagement, what drives voter turnout, all of those things are related to the black church. We'll talk about the role and the positive impact that the black church has had on the community. But what we'll see is that when we look at what's wrong with our communities or with the way our communities engage politically, you'll find religious involvement at the base of that. We'll talk about things like 501c3s and the role that 501c3s plays in the ability for churches to actually promote and produce and push forward certain candidates and be against candidates that are against the interests of black people. So keeping it simple, the first argument, the divisions in religious ideologies are replicated in our political ideologies, causing dissension that undermines our political strategies, right? We can't organize politically effectively if we're caught up and confused by our religious beefs. And then second, everything we complain about in terms of politics today has been facilitated by the black church. If you're mad at politics, you're going to find, or if you are mad about how black people engage with politics today, you're going to see that the church plays a large role in that type of engagement. And that if we want to change the status quo and how we engage politically, we have to remove the religious lens, the religious institutions, the religious mind from that engagement.
Time. All right. Brother Elder Yarah, you are up first. And you got 10 minutes in this round, brother. Use your time wisely, both of y'all. Good luck to both of you, brothers. And now it's on and popping. Elder Yarah, you got 10 minutes. Time will start when you're ready.
All right. Can you see my screen?
It's up. It's up.
All right. I want to make sure you can see it. All right. Let's deal with this, right?
Time start.
All right. Let's start with where he's actually really wants to take this argument with you guys, right? So he wants to disenfranchise black religion, right? As if it's a pariah in the community, right? And this is the furthest thing from the truth, right? So we're going to get into the understanding of why he's even attempting to make this argument. And let's ask ourselves, is it fueled by a neo-Marxist agenda? And we're going to get into that because I'm going to show you tonight where his argument is wholly framed within the parameters of a neo-Marxist agenda. Let's get into it, right? So Marxism versus neo-Marxism, right? Marxism aims at bringing about a kind of equanimity among the people, especially between the rich and the poor. This is kind of what you saw the Black Panthers moving on, right? Marxism, right? But this newfounded neo-Marxism is the overplay for the underplay, right? And I want y'all to understand this, right? So neo-Marxism, on the other hand, is said to incorporate several ideas and philosophies from Marxism, including its critical theory, psychoanalysis, and other ideologies like atheism and feminism. And I'm going to prove this tonight and show you where his argument is really founded. We're going to pull the covers off of his argument tonight and show you exactly where he's getting this information from and exactly where he's building this ideology and even why he wants to have this debate. So let's continue. The Marxist perspective on religions. Marx saw religion as a conservative force, which prevented social change by creating false consciousness. Right. This is what Marx promoted. Let's go. But neo-Marxism comes under a broader framework of the new left. And this is where my opponent's argument is really coming from, this new left ideology, right? So in a sociological sense, neo-Marxism adds Max Weber's broader understanding of social inequality, which is what he dealt with, such as status and power, to Marxist philosophy. Examples of neo-Marxism, right? Remember, this is where he's framing his argument tonight, within the parameters of neo-Marxism. Neo-Marxism includes analytical Marxism, French structural Marxism, again, critical theory, cultural studies, as well as some forms of feminism. This is about to get deeper, family. Watch this. The intersection of Black politics and religion, right? Let's get some understanding here, right? So listen to this, people. Watch this. This is the Kamahami River Collective, right? The Kambahi, I always get them mixed up. River Collective, a path-breaking group of radical Black feminists, was one of the most important organizations to develop out of the anti-racist and women's liberation movements of the 1960s and 70s. In this collection of essays and interviews, edited by activist scholar Kianga Yamada Taylor, founding members of the organization and contemporary activists reflect on the legacy of its contributions to Black feminism and its impact on today's struggle. This is where, in this book that she put out, How We Get Free, right? Black feminism and the Kambahi, I always say that wrong, Kambahi River Collective is where this argument of neo-Marxism is framed. And this is the enemy in regards to why religion should be kept out of Black politics, because they want to frame it in this feminist movement and give it a new face. They want to put all this makeup on it. They want to say what the Black church isn't doing and why it's divisive and why it's dividing. I'm going to show you the only place where we see division in the Black community when it comes to religion is when it comes to these issues of morality, that these people want to have an agenda that they feel like the Bible itself or religion constricts them, right? And so when Kianja Yamada Taylor writes in Black Politics, really what she's dealing with, and they try to cover up, is an LGBTQA agenda. And this plays against, and religion plays against their whole political movement, as well as male superiority, right? Patriarchy. They hate it, right? So this is what she says in her collective. Hopefully I can get through it. It says, we are a collective of Black feminists who have been meeting together since 1974. During that time, we have been involved in the process of defining and clarifying our politics, while at the same time doing political work within our own group and in a coalition with other progressive organizations and movements. So let me skip down to the second paragraph here. It says the most general statement, progressive organizations and movements, the most general statement of our politics at the present time would be that we are actively committed to struggling against racial, sexual, heterosexual, that's men, right? Especially black men, and class oppression, and see as our particular task the development of integrated analysis and practice based upon the fact that the major systems of oppression are interlocking, right? So what she's talking about, these major systems, she's talking about religion. She's talking about religion. And in order for them to effectively fight against what they call against racial, sexual, heterosexual, and class oppression, right? And she's not including really men in that. What they're including in that is women. This is a feminist movement, right? Hidden among this argument of why why religion should be taken out of black politics, right? As a black woman, we see black feminism as the logical political movement. And this is what Domo is going to be telling you tonight. To combat the manifold and simultaneous oppressions that all women of color face. We will discuss 4 major topics in that paper. The genesis of contemporary black feminism, we believe this and that, this and that. Now, she says, before looking at the recent development of black feminism, we would like to affirm that we find our origins in the historical reality of Afro-American women's continuous life and death struggle for survival and liberation. Black women's extremely negative relationship to the American political system, a.e. a system of white male rule, has always been determined by our membership in two oppressed and racial and sexual castes. As Angela Davis points out in Reflections to Black Women's Role in the Community of Slaves, Black women have always embodied, if only their physical manifestation, an adversary stance to white male. Now,
3 minutes.
While white male, in my next coming around, I'm going to show you why white male politics and white male religion has no effect on black voters and how they vote. So this is a fallacy that these people are promoting, right? And so when they say they want to take religion out of black politics, it's simply because they want an open pathway to live their lifestyle that they know most religions that black people are engaged in simply is divisive when it comes to the LGBTQA community and the atheist communities. So this thing is an agenda, not simply based on whether or not it's fractionalization of all. Now, keep in mind that LGBTQA community and the atheist community, so to speak, I'll just give that a label right now. That's a very small percentage of black people, especially among black voters. So it's not even talking about the majority or the whole of black voters in this country, right? Especially on the local level. It's not even dealing with that. It's a very small number, and I'm going to show you that later on in this conversation. It's a very small number. And so what they're doing is that my grandfather used to tell me, right, growing up, the wheel that squeaks the loudest is the one that gets the oil. And this is simply what they're doing, right? They're trying to create a new political movement based on their agenda that goes against religion simply because of the morality stance that the Bible takes, the morality stance that the Quran takes, the morality stance that Judaism takes, right? The morality stance that Yahwehism takes, right? So this is the crux of the argument. Don't get confused, people. Don't get confused by why you don't see the black church doing it and why you don't see the black church doing this.
1 minute.
What the black church is actually doing in this particular debate, right? And so we have to keep in mind, we're not talking about a majority when he's talking about fractionalization or disenfranchised black voters based on intersection of religion. We're not talking about a majority of people. He won't be able to show you that tonight. He won't be able to show you that religion separates and divides the majority of black people in this country. That does not exist, and it never has, right? So this is what we have to understand when it comes to this argument, right? This is a neo-Marxist agenda simply pushed by a small group of people with a very salient position simply based on their preference. Based on their preference. Their need to be able to want to live their lives, the need to be able to want to have same-sex marriages, the need that they want to be able to have transgender bathrooms in your children's schools.
Tom.
This is what they want to do. That's what this argument is about.
All right. Thank you, brother Yarah. We going on with brother Domo. You got 10 minutes in this round. Time starts when you're ready, when you speak.
Is my screen ain't sharing?
Not yet. Not yet.
All right. Let's get that up there.
I see it. It's up and running.
All right. Go ahead and start the timer. You can start the timer now. All right, y'all. Y'all right got up here talking about morality and all this other stuff. We about to get into data. All right. Should religion play a role in Black politics? Let's take a look at it. I already said I got two main arguments. My first is divisions in religious ideology are replicated and our political ideologies causing dissension that undermines our political strategies. Right. My second one is everything we complain about in terms of politics today has been facilitated by the Black church because it pushes political engagement with no substance. All right. Pushing political engagement with no substance. We ain't even got to talk about morality. Now, to develop my first argument, let's take a look at Malcolm X's Ballad of the Bullet speech. In that speech, which he gave in conjunction with Christian pastors, is that he argued that his alignment with these Christian pastors is only made possible by the fact that they are leaving their religious beliefs behind them. He argues that even though his religion is Islam, his religion is between him and his God, which he feels is the best approach to organizing. He states that were we to come out here discussing religion, we'd have too many differences from the outstart and we could never get together. He continues by saying that though Islam is my religious philosophy, check this, my political, economic, and social philosophy is Black nationalism. Malcolm is strategically compartmentalizing his religious stance and his political stances because he recognizes that being for Black people works to the benefit of all of us and not just the people that believe the way that we do. He goes on to say that if we bring up religion, we will have differences and arguments and we will never be able to get together. We know Malcolm was a deeply religious man. So for him to recognize the danger of religion and the way we organize politically is telling. But this isn't just Malcolm's opinion. He was able to recognize what data was later able to prove to be true. But remember though, what's important about this is Malcolm X ain't arguing morality when he talks about why he's leaving his religion behind to come work with these Christian pastors. Why, when they come there as Christian pastors and they come as Islamic pastors, they put that behind them to be Black nationalists? That has nothing to do with morality. In a study entitled The Faith of Black Politics, the relationship between Black religious and Black political beliefs, researchers use survey data to understand how different Black religious traditions interact with our political circumstances. The three main religious traditions we operate from are the social gospel, prosperity gospel, and Black liberation theology. We don't have to talk about anything else. We don't have to talk about where they stand morality or from a standpoint of morality, where they stand from the standpoint of what they think is right or not. We're only going to talk about the data associated with the actual believers and what's a part of our community. The social gospel may be summarized by three core components: social solidarity, equality, and action. The activities and rhetoric surrounding the civil rights movement exemplify the Black church embracing the social gospel, as Martin Luther King and other Southern Christian Leadership Conference argued that it was the religious duty to ensure equality. They developed Christianity that emphasized Black dignity and insisted that authentic Christian faith was incompatible with racial prejudice. So the gospel that we typically see associated with social justice, the gospel that we saw in the civil rights movement, is characterized in culture, or excuse me, in academia as the social gospel. Then you got the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel argues that God will bless the faithful with financial and physical prosperity. Its central beliefs assert that Christ's death and the resurrection indicate that Christians can attain perfect health and flourish financially as long as you keep paying them tithes. Proponents of the prosperity gospel, like Creflo Dollar, vehemently claim that strong faith is the only way to vanquish racism. Dollar further argues against seeking redress from the government for past wrongs such as slavery. People like Eddie Long told a group of civil rights leaders that they should forget racism. I think we already starting to see some conflict. The third religious tradition prominent in the Black community is Black liberation theology, which shares similarities with both the social and prosperity gospels. It places the Christian experience in the Black experience and argues that true Christians identify with the Black experience. Like the social gospel, it emphasizes equality, but like the prosperity gospel, it assumes a special connection with the divine. Formalized during the Black Power movement, it argues that there is a religious imperative for Blacks to empower themselves. We're only looking at data associated with 3 Christian religious beliefs. We're not talking about who wants to be gay and who think. No, we're talking about how these Christian beliefs interact, and we're going to see if it produces a positive outcome. And you see the unity that he's talking about.
5 minutes.
Using survey and census data, this study takes these 3 ideologies and examine their relationship with 4 Black political stances. The first is the fate of all Black people are connected. The second is there is a racial power imbalance in favor of whites. And the third is that the fate of Black people are linked to the overall class struggle. And fourth, there is a class power imbalance in favor of the rich. Now, ideally, our political ideology should have a positive statistical relationship with all 4 of these beliefs. To reflect being on the same page, survey data should show an alignment in these 4 areas. However, the data shows that when we look at how these ideologies interact, our main religious traditions are all over the place. Now, look here, we just talking about just from the perspective of Black people, just Black people. This is a racial question at this moment. Everything else he tried to bring up, we're about to look at how these religious stances impact how we view our political stances. While proponents of Black liberation theology strongly believe in a connection between the fate of all Black people and argue that there is a racial power imbalance, supporters of the prosperity gospel argue against both of those stances. Data shows that the prosperity gospel has a negative relationship with believing that the fate of Black people are connected and that there is a racial power imbalance. How are we supposed to organize with people politically that's introducing their religion when their religion tells them that you're not connected to other Black people, like what you see from the prosperity gospel? So that's clear contention already just between people who preach prosperity and people who preach social justice. Data showed that the social gospel was closer linked to Black liberation, but then we see huge disparities in these beliefs on the question of the class-based struggle and income disparities. When you look at this data, there's not one place where you can draw a line through this chart to identify any consistency in belief that could be used as the basis for any political strategy. If you look at this chart and you see how it's all over the place, when you look at this chart and see the ups and downs and there's not one place in this chart, right, that shows any like if we Black linked fate, no consistency here. Racial polar power, no consistency here. Fate linked to the poor, no consistency there. Class power, polar power, like there's a class imbalance, no consistency there. Nothing to do with Marxism. If we simply look at the ways in which the spiritual ideologies, the religious ideologies that are prominent in our communities, if you look at how they interact with how we understand each other, or how we understand society, there is a clear conflict. And while there is some alignment with social gospels and Black liberation theology that could be helpful in our political organizing, they are actually losing influence in Black communities. This research shows that the growth of the prosperity gospel is a sign of fundamental changes in Black politics being associated with lower levels of racial and class solidarity. Indicating that support for prosperity gospel lost my spot. Indicating that went down too far. Indicating that support for the prosperity gospel leads Blacks away from the central tenets of Black politics established during the Civil War. The most prominent, the fastest growing understanding of Black spirituality, the prosperity gospel, is pushing people away from the belief that Blacks are linked together in this issue. This is the division that Malcolm is talking about. The introduction of religious ideologies into these political conversations create conflict. When our political perspectives are shaped by our religious beliefs, religious beefs become our political beefs, which handicap our ability to create consistent, coherent political strategies. The main focus of our politics should be creating better circumstances for people that look like us, regardless of their spiritual belief. But I've heard how y'all talk about and to each other over simple biblical differences. We watch religious people on this platform every day thrive in their beef with other doctrines, even though y'all read from the same source. You can't tell me that injecting religious ideology into politics can make it more unified when we see every day the divisions that exist amongst different religious sectors, specifically with Black people. Old Testament, New Testament, Christian, Hebrew, Catholic, whatever. Right, all of these people using these same spiritual books are still divided, and the data shows that we inject that into our political understanding, those divisions are replicated in how we understand how we need to move politically.
Tom. All right, thank you, my brother Domo. We got the first round out of the way, and now I'm coming back. I'm coming black with my brother Elder Yarah. Your 10 minutes will start, brother. Second round, when you're ready. Second round begins when you are ready. And I don't want none of the moderators blocking anybody. No moderators block nobody. You can time them out, but don't block anybody. Only if they being vulgar, disrespecting you, inviting you to their private parts, stuff like that. I don't need to tell you to block someone. You know to block them. But if they just talking smack, let them talk smack. There go my man, Cube. I've been calling Cube. Cube don't pick up the phone. Anyway, Cube, hit me up when you get time. All right, brother Yarah, time will start when you get ready, brother, when you're ready.
All right. I'm
see your screen?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, time will start, brother.
All right, great. Again, people, brother Domo, he said he was going to give us some real data. He never gave us any real qualitative data about how these religions separate us at the polls. When Black people go to vote, regardless of their religious beliefs and doctrines, they still vote for the same things. And I'm going to show you that. They want better schools, better jobs, safer communities. It doesn't matter what religion or what section of religion you come from, especially Black people, they all want the same things. And this is what the data shows, right? All of that fluff he gave us sounds good, but it doesn't translate to the topic of this debate, right? So Religion Unplugged, Black Christians and Black nuns, right, show little ideological divide. This goes against everything he's been saying tonight. This is by Ryan Burrs, January 22nd, 2021. The Black community is not a religious monolith. While the largest share of African Americans identify as Christians, 63.5%, nearly a quarter indicate that they have no religious affiliation, 22.1%, and another 15% identify as part of another faith group, Muslim, Buddhists, Hindus, etc. Watch this. While these religious differences generate huge political divides among the white community, is the same true for Black Americans? The data indicates that race generates a unifying identity for Black Americans, much more so than it does for white America. And religious differences at the ballot box are often small or non-existent when comparing Black Americans of different faith traditions. So in other words, it doesn't matter what a religion or what sect of religion you come from, we're all Black when it comes to our children. We're all Black when it comes to their education. We're all Black when it comes to safer communities. And this is what our politicians give us and offer us, and this is what we look for. This is what we look for. It doesn't matter where you come from. Religiously, we all want the same things when it comes to dropping that ballot, punching that ballot. Let's continue. Black religion and Black voters equals Black unification. Watch this. Here's a peer research review. Center from June 2020. 3 in 10 Black adults say predominantly Black churches have done a great deal to help Black people move toward equality in the U.S. This is another slap at his face with this argument, right? percentage of Black Americans who say each of the following have done to help Black people move forward toward equally in the U.S. Civil rights organizations from the Black churches, 60% say they've done a great deal. Predominantly Black churches, 29%, 48% say some. Predominantly Black Muslim organizations such as the Nation of Islam, 12% look at it a great deal, 42%, excuse me, say some. They've done some work. The federal government, 11% versus 44%. Predominantly white churches, 7%. So when it comes to the polls, people, and voting, we know where our bread and butter is at. We vote the same, regardless of our individual beliefs. Let's continue. 1 in 4 Black adults say it's essential for houses of worship to offer sermons on political topics. Is this just talking about one religion? No, we're talking about Protestants. We're talking about Catholics. We're talking about non-Christian faiths, unaffiliated, U.S.-born immigrants. So when it comes to these varying religious, but black religions that we're involved in as Black Americans, we still come to the same conclusion. When it comes to our children, when it comes to their education, when it comes to our communities, when it comes to our local everyday living, we vote the same. There's no misunification in that. My point was telling you guys earlier, the argument that Domo is bringing out only existed in the intersectionality argument when it comes to the gay and lesbian agenda and some atheists that don't want anything to do with religion at all. That's the argument that he's making. That's the commentary that he's bringing out. He's not going to show you this data. He's not going to be honest in this conversation and tell you that when it comes to the polls, when we cast our vote, we vote the same, regardless of whatever religion affiliation we have. This is what the data shows. And this is from Peer Research Review, November 19, 2019. Let's go a little bit further. Interfaith America says Black Americans crave a deeper integration of religion in politics, right? So I want to go into that real quick. Hopefully I can get it back. Here it is. Black Americans crave a deeper integration of religion in politics by Musa El Garbi, right? April 16, 2021, right? Throughout the Quran, God chases the faithful not to be nice and avoid doing wrong in their personal lives, but instead to support the good and prohibit or resist that which is incompatible with our share of the path. This mandate, which is repeated over and over again throughout the Quran, and it gives the verses, right? It also talks about the Gospels are quite similar to the Quran in these respects. So we got two major religions in the Black community that agree, right? There are not features unique to Christianity or Islam, right? Let me go down here a little further. Within the United States, Black people seem to be particularly attuned to the political nature of religious faith. They are significantly less likely than whites or Hispanics to think that churches and houses of worship should stay out of politics, and much more likely than other racial groups to assert that religious institutions should express views on social politics and questions or even political candidates. So where are you getting this information from, Domo? That because we have differences in religion or doctrine, we don't come together when it comes to our children's health, their schooling, their safety in our communities, and the wealth in Black community, generational wealth. There's no religion that teaches against generational wealth. You can't show me one, especially not in the Black community. And if you can, it still doesn't translate to how we vote at the polls. Let me go back. Right? Black Religious Belief Systems and Political Participation by Tasha S. Philpott and Eric.
3 minutes.
Right? Political science research has shown that attending religious institutions promotes Blacks' political participation by doing what, Domo? Developing civic norms, skills, and networks. Where are you getting this information? Black religious belief systems, when it comes to the polls, we cooperate with each other. We coalesce in developing civic norms, skills, and networks, right? The National Review of Black Politics. This is from July 2020. Where's your information, Domo? Black Americans more religious than U.S. public overall. Among all U.S. adults, percentage who say believe in God, higher power, 90% of Black adults. Evil spirits can harm 70%. Opposing racial essential to faith, 68%. Right? This is the interfaith.org. Right? Where are you getting your information from? The qualitative data doesn't agree with you, Domo. I dread to say you're making it up. Black religion and social reform, the role of religious diversity in social progress. We can go into that, but let me get down here real quick. Systematically investigating the significance of belief and practice in everyday lives and local context to get a handle on the mass data, the impact of religion and its relevance to social progress was analyzed across a carefully selected range of fields. Let me jump down here. It is important to keep in mind that the multiple variables that make up religion, researchers and policymakers who are interested in social progress should pay careful attention to the following: the power of religious ideas to motivate, the effectiveness of religious practice in shaping ways of life, the potential of religious communities in mobilizing and extending the reach of social change, and the role of religious leaders and symbols in legitimating calls to action. This is at the local level. How are you saying religion divides us when the data doesn't agree with you, Domo? Taken together, these attributes add up to a powerful and mobilizing force that can be put together either for good or ill. Both are possible, for which reason broad generalizations are rarely helpful, which is what Domo has given us.
1 minute.
Generalizations, right? The faith of Black politics between Blacks and religions. Let me go through here, right? This is peer research in the faith among Black Americans, religious beliefs among Black Americans. Another 21% says somewhat important, right? 9% not at all, 9% important in their lives. Among those who identify with the religion, politics are more likely than Catholics to say religion is very important. So when you try to dismiss Black politics, we try to dismiss Black religion for politics, these people are not leaving their religion at home. They're taking it to the polls with them, but they're voting for what's best for their families. And no one disagrees that for their families, their children, their safety, generational wealth is important across the board. It doesn't matter what faith you come from, Domo. Far fewer religiously unaffiliated Black Americans, that is, those who identify as atheists, agnostic, or nothing in peculiar, say religion is very important in their lives. This is Pew Research Center, right? Let me go down here. Blacks in TORAH, right? Why did Kendrick Lamar is the most political rapper modern day in pop culture, right? He's known for his political activism, right?
Time. All right, brother Domo.
Yeah.
All right, it's on you, brother. Time will start when you're ready, brother. We got your screen up.
Yeah. All right.
Let me know when you're ready.
All right, go ahead and start the timer.
All right.
Now, all right, Yarah said some things that I don't want to touch on. Pew Research. Light work. He don't understand that he really just made it easier for me to make my second argument. And that's that everything we complain about in terms of politics today has been facilitated by the Black church because it pushes political engagement with no substance. I don't even have to disagree with the Pew Research data because I'm gonna use some of it too. We're going to talk about it. But the first thing I want to do, I do want to recognize, just like the authors in the study that I pointed out, The Faith of Black Politics, they begin their research with the recognition of the role that the church plays and has played historically. They point out how the Black church and Black religion have come to symbolize Black politics. They point out how that some scholars argue that the Black church serves as a symbol of racial consciousness and self-determination. The church generates connections across class lines by providing a place for poor or low-skilled Blacks to acquire training and networking among class ranks. Many of the civic skills gained in the Black church are portable in the political arena. That's what Yarah thought I wasn't going to bring out. What I can concede in this debate is that the Black church has done positive things for the Black community. But when it comes to how we should strategize for Black people politically, religious leaders and institutions have failed to evolve politically and are producing diminishing returns. Everything he's talking about, I'm going to show how it's producing diminishing returns. The electoral and legislative outcomes and priorities that Black people here feel like isn't helpful and is actually detrimental for Black people All the things that Black people complain about when it comes to Black political engagement are a result of religious people shaping our political engagement. Everything that Yarah pointed out. Let's look at Pew Research. Overall, Black Americans are more likely than the larger U.S. public to both say it's important for sermons to touch on political topics and to hear sermons that actually do. So everybody listening, Black people are more likely to demand political conversation from their religious leaders. Yarah wouldn't argue this. Pew Research also notes that amongst white Democrats and Republicans go to church more. That gap don't exist amongst Black folk. Black Democrats and Black Republicans go to the church the same amount. Now, this is where it gets funny. This is where it get real funny. Y'all know how y'all complain about the Democratic Party? Well, that's one thing that religious people don't beef about, that Yarah just said, because they overwhelmingly vote Democrat. Not only do they vote majority Democrat, they're more engaged. They vote more, especially more than non-religious people. Sit on that, though. We're going to put a pin in that because that's about to become really important. I want to move the conversation into the subject of taxes. Most churches and religious groups operate under what's known as a 501c3. We've heard of the conversation of 501c3s, but to those who may not be aware, 501c3 is tax-exempt status offered to certain groups like churches to make money without paying taxes. They can collect bread and not have to give Uncle Sam his cut. But in order to qualify in this exemption, these organizations cannot engage in any attempt to influence legislation as a substantial part of its activities. It may not participate in any campaign activity for or against political candidates. It tells you that you got to be nonpartisan. But guess what? You can't be pro-Black and nonpartisan. You cannot say, I want to develop political strategies for Black people as a church when your 501c3 tax-exempt status tells you that you cannot advocate one way or another for any political stances or political candidates. Politically, 501c3 churches can't pick a side, at least to a substantial degree. They can't tell you who to vote for, who not to vote for, or what policies we should support, or what policies we should reject. But they can give you a ride to the polls. They can teach you about voting. They can take you there. They can't tell you what's good for you or what's bad for you, what's productive for you, what's not productive for you, but they can take you there. In the Ballad of the Bullet, Malcolm X argues that it's time for Black people to go through a political maturation where we reject the politicians that even we today argue that are sent to us, that don't have our good at heart, somebody chosen by the system. He said the time when white people can come in our community and get us to vote for them so they can be our political leaders and tell us what to do is long gone. By that same token, them telling us or sending us another Negro in the community to get you and me to support him so that they can use him to lead us astray, those days are long gone too. And until we become politically mature, we will always be misled, led astray, or deceived, or maneuvered into supporting someone politically who doesn't have the good of our community at heart. But legally, not only can the Black churches not tell you to reject counterproductive bad candidates, they are limited in their ability to help the community groom politicians because they can't advocate on behalf of one or the other. What we get from the church due to things like 501c3 is literally empty calories. It's empty political engagement. They'll tell you about how you can vote. They'll tell you where you can go to vote. They can take you to the polls. They'll pick you up, but they can't tell you who you should and shouldn't vote for. If we're talking about strategizing, what political strategy can we develop when the church can't tell us that that's good or that's bad? So what are we talking about? Why are Black people demanding that their sermons include political information, but at the same time that political information isn't positive or negative for the Black community? It's empty calories. We get nothing out of it. Yeah, we vote in unison, but don't we consider that the problem? You can't get up here and tell these people like, yeah, when we go to the polls, we all vote in unison. Okay, who are we voting for though? We voting for Democrats. Does that help it? Is that productive? No, in no way, shape, form, or fashion. We are not getting any productive political dialogue to come from these churches. Yes, church people are more politically engaged, but when we aren't getting the right necessary information, the right necessary knowledge, they can't strategize with us because they can't encourage the strategy. They can just tell you to go vote. The study also points out how scholars of Black politics have found that the civil rights movement's message of racial and class solidarity has faded. Furthermore, the movement's emphasis on the need for government involvement to help solve the race problem has given upground to those who view the wounds of Blacks as self-inflicted. Just as Black politics has witnessed a declining commitment to racial and class equality, the Black church
3 minutes
of social and spiritual salvation is losing prominence to a theology that emphasizes individual wealth and material accumulation. We can't point out how the church has been helpful in certain instances, but also recognize how it's detrimental to us politically. I echo Malcolm's sentiment in that in order for us to stop complaining about the politicians we are given, we need to groom and create our own politicians. However, to make sure that they keep all their coins, religious leaders Religious leaders abdicate. They give up their ability to use their role of a religious institution to do that. They can't say, vote for this Black man now. They can only parade politicians in front of you. They can only take you to the polls. They can't be an institution of political change because they value that exempt status. That's why political dialogue that has been infiltrated by religion are empty calories. You can't brag about what religious institutions have done for Black communities, or for the politics of Black communities, and then complain about the state of political engagement. Yes, the church plays a large role in how we organize now, and that's why it also shares the blame when we express the issue with the status quo. So in closing, our people demand our religious leaders and institutions talk about political issues, but in order to maintain their Texasism status, they can't. These religious leaders can't actually do anything to influence how we vote. This is where voting with no substance comes from. The church puts forth the biggest effort to get people to the polls, but give the people no real substance or guidance on how they should cast a ballot. A right that they gave up just so they didn't have to pay taxes. Majority of y'all watching feel like Black people were tricked into voting Democrat. But the data shows that people that vote Democrat are mostly religious people, church-going folk. They the most active in terms of getting Democrats elected. What is it about the relationship to the church that keeps this in a cycle of voting for the same people over and over? The fact that they advocate for voting but offer no substance. It's like candy. The church talking about politics tastes good, but it does nothing for you. So we have the two biggest problems with Black political organizing: blindly voting for the same people, voting just to vote in unison, but we voting just to vote, and enabling counterproductive practices in the Black church. They gave up their ability to say, we are advocating for this Black man to be the politician in our community. They can't do that. 501c3 say they can't do that. That means that they can't provide an understanding of political strategies that are productive in a way that we can say, this is who the church stands behind. No, the church has become an arm of the Democratic Party. If all y'all got static for the Democratic Party, then you should have static for the churches that routinely encourage people to vote without telling them the same thing we talk about here every day. Stop just voting just to vote. That should be time.
Tom, you right on point too, brother. You right on point. All right, Elder Yarah, we got 2 rounds in. We going up for the last and final round. Y'all should be getting y'all questions ready. I'm going to open up the lines after these brothers question each other. And I'm going to say, brother, Elder Yarah, a knockout in this round, Yarah, will be sufficient enough to walk away with this W, brother. If you could pull it off, a knockout in the last round, because Domo is coming up big. He's coming up big. And I'm going to just say, you got 10 minutes, Elder Yarah. Time will start when you're ready. Your screen is up. Unmute yourself, brother.
All right.
There you go. Time will start when you're ready.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, you got Malcolm up there.
Great. So this is the fence sitting that I'm talking about, right? Don't be fooled by not taking a position while saying you're taking a position. Domo's not taking a position either way. Simply saying because the church has a 501c3 or religious organization has a 501c3 and they can't campaign politically in their pulpit doesn't mean they can't be active politically and they can't mobilize their people politically. We saw this during the George Floyd incident. We saw this due to Tamir Rice incident. We saw them being politically active in the community. This is a farce. Come on, people. But let me touch on something, right? This is what Malcolm actually says, right? October 20, 1962 at Yale Law School, right? We believe that the miserable plight of the 20 million Black people in America is the fulfillment of a divine prophecy. We believe that the serious race problem, right, which is a political problem that he often addressed, even in his Ballad of the Bullet speech, that our presence here possesses for America is also the fulfillment of divine prophecy. So it's fallacious to say that Malcolm, when he gives his Ballad of the Bullet speech, that he simply lays down his religious ideology. What he's saying in the Ballad of the Bullet speech is simply, we may have differences in religion, but we yet can come together and coalesce when it comes to the polls, because it's all divinely working together. That's what he's talking about here. The Ballad of the Bullet by Malcolm X, Cleveland, Ohio, April 3rd, 1964. Before we try and explain what is meant by the Ballad of the Bullet, I would like to clarify something concerning myself. He says, I'm still a Muslim. My religion is still Islam. This is what he says, people. That's my personal belief. You think when Malcolm goes to the polls and he's telling everybody else to go to the polls to vote, that he doesn't take his personal belief with him? That's a miscarriage of justice when you quote in the Ballad of the Bullet speech, Domo. And I should hope you shouldn't do it anymore. And then he goes on to say, just as Adam Clayton Powell is a Christian minister who heads the Abyssinian Baptist Church of New York, but at the same time takes part in the political struggles to try and bring about rights to black people in this country. Dr. Martin Luther King is a Christian minister down in Atlanta, Georgia, who has another organization fighting for what? The civil rights of black people in this country. And Reverend Gallimison, I guess you heard of him, is another Christian minister in New York who has been deeply involved in the school boycotts to eliminate segregated education. Well, I myself am a minister, right? This is what he's saying. Not a Christian minister, but a Muslim minister. And I believe in action on all fronts by whatever means necessary. He's not saying he has to dismiss or get rid of his religion in order to cast a right ballot for what's right for his people as a whole. That's ridiculous. That's not what he's saying in his speech. But let's continue here, right? Blacks, Bibles, and ballots, right? Now, Domo says there's no one that we can come together. I'm talking about right now today, that black people could get behind, right? Simply because someone's coming from an institution that has a 501c3. Senator Raphael Warnock is an associate pastor at Ebenezer Church and down in Georgia, which clearly has had a 501c3 since they've been allowed to give them. But here, Warnock, Reverend Raphael Warnock, won 2 U.S. Senator elections in Georgia, galvanizing the people. Domo wants to say, don't vote Democratic. What does he want you to do? Vote Republican? He wants you to vote for Donald Trump? But if he's not saying that, who does he want you to vote for? He wants you to vote independent? What independent candidates have you had in your local communities that have helped you, who's actually won on a major political ticket or platform? What does Domo want you to do? In essence, he wants your vote to be nothing, simply because he doesn't agree with the church's perspective or religious perspective on how they pursue their political activism. Senator Raphael Warnock is a cut to Domo's whole entire argument here. You can listen to what he says in the U.S. news about him. Watch what they talk about. If it was left up to Domo, none of you would have gone to the polls to vote for him on his ticket. They would have wanted you to vote for Herschel Walker. If you would have listened to Domo's argument, Herschel Walker would be in office right now. Who don't know if he paid for an abortion or not? If he drove a woman to pay for an abortion or not? Propped up, can barely read the teleprompter. Clearly a Republican puppet. Domo would have you vote for him, or what? Simply not vote at all? Is this the argument he's trying to make this evening? This is a young person's argument who doesn't understand history, the plight that blacks have been through, which our ancestors lived, bled, and died for, and going to the polls, being able to vote. He wants you to delve into the minutia of politics and don't do anything. He's not giving you any other political parties to get behind that's actually made any headways towards black progress in this country. He's not giving you any of that. No solutions. No other political parties he's mentioned. Just don't vote for the Democrats. Because a lot of church folks vote for him. He's surely not going to come on here and tell you to vote Republican because he know y'all are crucifying right off the bat. But what other party is he giving you? Not one. Not one alternative. So what does he want you to do with the vote that your ancestors, your grandmother, your great-great-grandmother walked miles for in the bus boycotts? That dogs were sicked on them and washed down and washed to the ground and beaten and stomped on with water holes. Persecuted and shot in the 60s. You would rather see your children end up like Emmett Till than to cast a vote that could help you better your communities in just a little way? Is this what Domo is offering you? This is all he's been given tonight. Let's continue. Your vote is your voice. Your voice is your human dignity. Senator Reverend
3 minutes.
delivers urgent calls for federal action to preserve voting rights in Georgia nationwide during his first Senate floor speech. Come on, Domo, who you talking to? Cornel West. There's no religion that does not have political consequences and effects. Come on, Domo. Jeremiah Wright, understanding black religion and politics in the age of emancipation. Perhaps you remember in 2008, ABC News compilation of short clips talked about what Jeremiah Wright, then Democratic presidential candidate Barack Obama, how they tried to use him to take down a Democratic president, first black president in this country. Wright called for God's judgment on the nation for the sins of racism and imperialism. This is black liberation theology. The controversy lay not in the fact that a black church was politicized, not because his religion inspired political action, even with him having a 501c3, nor because he endorsed the candidate from the pulpit, Domo. No, Wright's preaching proved controversial because of his ideas. He narrated his God relationship to the nation in a way that challenged how many white Americans understood themselves, their nation, and their God. It doesn't matter what a 501c3 does. Let me get down here real quick. This is what Domo don't get. Blacks, politics, and safer communities. We just had incidences with Tyree Nichols and the officers that were charged, and these black officers, Breonna Taylor, Randy Cox, right? Ronald Green, Jordan Edwards. You know who was on the forefronts of these political stands against the police? These forefronts and the political stands against these people coming into our communities and killing down and shooting down our people? The black church, the Boston Herald, black pastors call on lawmakers.
1 minute.
Seize the political moment and pass police reform. This is just published in August 2020. What are you talking about, Domo? Are you saying little progress is no progress? Little activism is no activism? How dare you come in here and say that the blood, sweat, and tears of many of these people around the country, black pastors, regardless of whether they come through religion, can't come together and support their local communities and get things done? You're saying this is nothing because they took advantage of a political moment to say, hey, listen, we need police reform in our communities. Come on, Domo, let's not do this. This ain't got nothing to do with Republicans or Democrat. This has something to do with black people and what they need to survive in these communities. Pastors, African Methodist Episcopal churches who serve more than 4,000 predominantly Congress throughout Massachusetts wrote the bill, missed key opportunities to address long policing practices. Come on, let's get it. You can't do this anymore.
All right, brother. Domo, this will be your last round. Elder Yarah came in strong on this one, his last round. Brother Domo, the time will start when you start, brother.
All right. Man, let's go ahead and get it. Have y'all noticed that all he did was ad hominem attacks on what he think I was trying to do without? Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Have y'all not noticed that all he did was make arguments about what I'm trying to do without actually addressing my argumentation? He's arguing about voting, even though my last debate on here, I was advocating for voting. That's all I ever advocate for. But what I argue is that voting is the last step of the process. This is why the religious brain is behind, people. The religious brain is behind because it's attached to these old narratives that no longer serve us. When it comes to religion playing a role in black politics, we are now producing diminishing returns. What you just saw from Yarah was diminishing returns. He's arguing about voting, but what we understand now in 2023 is that voting is the last step in the process. Voting is the last thing you do in terms of political engagement. Because the question is, who are we voting for? Like Malcolm said, we no longer are allowing them to send us candidates. The church cannot tell you, that sermon cannot tell you who not to vote for, who you should vote for. Raphael Warnock was not allowed to campaign from the pulpit. He had to leave. He had to step down in order to run his campaign. Even his church could not say, vote Raphael Warnock. They can put him in front of the people. But in that pulpit, their 501c3 status says that they cannot say, vote for Raphael Warnock. All they could do is put him in front of you and then tell you, hey, listen to him. Listen to him. Now, Yarah did a lot of lying. He did a lot of lying. I want to start what he lied about when it comes to Ballot of the Bullet. Malcolm X. He lied. What does it say right here in literally after his introduction? I'm still a Muslim. That is my religion is still Islam. I still credit Mr. Muhammad for what I know. He's the one that opened my eyes. He said, Islam is my religion, but I believe my religion is my personal business. It governs my personal life, my personal morals. And my religious philosophy is between me and the God in whom I believe. Just as the religious philosophy of these others is between them and the God they believe. And this is the best way. Were we to come here outright discussing religion, we would have too many differences. So he read everything in that, but ignored the part where Malcolm said explicitly, if we come here starting with religion, we will have too many differences before we can be productive. What is Yarah talking about? Let's look at some of these foolish arguments, because that lie was easy to debunk. They didn't take no time. Real quick, then he also said that I presented no data. I literally showed a graph of qualitative data from the study that I presented. This one here. What is he talking about? No qualitative data, or no data at all, right? Instead of sharing my screen, I'm just gonna show this real quick. You see this? See this chart? That's the chart that I showed. Do y'all see how all of those dots, which represent the different political beliefs amongst the black community, are not in sync? Did you see how they weren't aligned? They were all over everywhere. That's because that data reflect the division in our spiritual ideologies. He didn't address that. Yarah gonna sit up here and act like he literally gonna sit up here and act like on this platform alone, religious people don't get up here tearing down other religious people. Y'all don't even think other religious people deserve salvation. Y'all think other religious people are gonna be y'all slaves. But you trying to tell me right now that religion doesn't cause division? We're going to talk about the evidence you use to make that argument. But everything about my experience with this community, with you, Yarah, with the people that you rock with the people that you support, I've seen you yourself demean other black people based on what it is that they believe. How you going to sit here and try to say that this thing is a unifying factor? Come on, bro. Black liberation theology beefs with the social gospel. The social gospel and Black liberation theology beef with the prosperity gospel. And the prosperity gospel is the fastest growing Black religious ideology, and it's telling you that all these political things, that ain't got nothing to do with you. Racism got to do with your relationship with God. What are we talking about? I showed where you got people like Creflo Dollar. You got people like Eddie Long died, but you got people in that lane that's constantly talking about, leave that racism stuff alone. We just need to focus on the Lord. How are we supposed to help build political strategies when the biggest players in the religious game are telling you that it ain't got nothing to do with the government? What are we talking about? We know on this platform alone, we consistently sit and watch all the beefs between religious people. And you think that we can sit down and just pick people that be on this platform and be like, all right, let's get on the same page politically? No, y'all don't even think I'm able to go to heaven. Y'all don't like the whole 150 whatever people like that. That's not a unifying thing. That's not beneficial for us as a people. So when he tries to tell you, well, Domo, when we go to the polls, all the data shows that, we all vote together. That's my second argument, Yarah. That's the problem, bro. That's the problem. The church has pacified us to focus on voting, but ignoring everything else. You want to know why? Because the church can't talk about nothing else but go vote. That sermon can't tell you how you should think about, like he pointed out, the church is talking about police reform. But guess what? They can't advocate for any specific police reform bill. So Congress could pass a police reform bill and it could be trash. But the church can't influence how we look at that bill. That's the requirements of a 501c3. What are you talking about? Ain't gonna try to tell y'all, he ain't giving you an alternative. The alternative is to develop political strategies amongst Black people that's focused on Black people, not got anything to do with our religious understanding. The alternative is to divorce ourselves from our religious perspectives in a way that allows us to think through these things in unison. Not allow how we view God or how we view gay people or how we view all these other things to mean that we can't engage politically. Because, hey, check this out. Regardless of how you feel about gay people, you can't align with politically with gay Black people politically.
3 minutes.
There's no way that y'all could be in sync. You've already identified the way that that's a particular group that can't fit in your political paradigm of Black people. All the evidence that I showed had to do with Black people as a whole, the way that we think about it. The church has gotten in the way of our ability to evolve our understanding of political engagement. The church has gotten in the way of our ability to evolve how we see who we should and shouldn't be voting for. So when Yarah is trying to like fearmonger and be like, if the church ain't got us voting, then what the Tyree Nichols and what happened with bro, that all those things happen. The church ain't done nothing to change the political circumstances to make that happen, because you cannot tell me that the church has played that much of a role in how we engage things politically in the status quo, and then turn around and say that yes, the church should be applauded for what it's done in the status quo. If you ask any of these people here, is it okay? Is it good that we all of us are voting Democrat? They all gonna say no. But if we ask, okay, who out of the Black people who overwhelmingly votes Democrat? It's religious people. What are we talking about? Most of his arguments was straw man's. Really, he was attempting to create a narrative around fear and how it's like, well, if we don't do this, we ain't got nothing. Man, if you talking about voting, that you've already behind. If you're not talking about building, creating, grooming, putting out front and saying, this is who the community votes for, this is who the community stands with, you're not talking about real political engagement. You're talking about going along with the get along. Black people demanding sermons, speak on political issues. Guess what? Empty calories. Empty calories. It's political engagement with no substance. They're telling you to go vote, but legally, their tax-exempt status means that they can't tell you who to vote for. So what is the benefit? What are we looking for the church for? We can take civics classes and really get and develop an understanding of civics. We can go to school. It's a lot of things that the church offers that's not unique to the church. The only thing unique to the church is the sermons and the religious aspect. But if you can get all those other things we get from the church somewhere else, that means that the church ain't needed. And a part of the problem is that we cannot consistently complain about the way that we've been doing things the same way over and over again, and then recognize that the church has been the impetus of how these things take place. What are we talking about? Let's be real here. All the data, all that Pew Research data that he pointed out, tried to say that I was scared of, I was ready. I was going to pull out the same thing. So thanks for the help. Thanks for the help. That's
all right. With that, damn, Domo, you did it 2 times in a row. Time. Soon as it went 0, you said that's time. Like, oh, he over there timing himself as well. That's cool. So here we are. We are time for the question and answers. You have a right to ask 2 questions to Domo, and vice versa, Domo. You have the right to ask Elder Yarah 2 questions. Then we're going to open it up for the panel, for the floor, to see if they would like to ask some questions. Brother Elder Yarah, would you like to ask Domo a couple of questions?
Of course he would.
Matter of fact, I'm going to give you 7 minutes to question Domo. Whenever you want to stop questioning him, whenever you're good, you can say, let's move on, Domo, and we move on to the next question. Elder Yarah, you got 7 minutes in this questionnaire series. It's on you.
All right. Okay, great. I want to ask Domo, first of all, thank you, brother, for this debate. I enjoyed it this evening.
Appreciate it. Finally, Yarah.
Yeah, finally. So let me ask you, Domo, do you own a voter registration card?
I do.
Why do you own a voter registration card?
Because I vote. Because
you vote, right?
Yes,
in the last 2 local elections, have you voted Democrat or Republican or Independent?
For some candidates, I voted Democrat. Some candidates, I voted Independent.
So would you say that for some candidates, based on the information you delivered tonight and I delivered tonight, that you are in line with most religious voters?
I mean, we may vote for the same thing. Like, so our votes may be aligned, but like why we vote and how we vote, we don't reach the same conclusion. Because like you said, it'll be some places where we align, but then it'll be other places where we
okay, but the number of candidates that you're allowed to vote for on a particular ballot doesn't change, right?
I mean, it does when it comes to certain positions and certain roles, but I mean, for the most part, like if you're talking like president, right? You really only got like 2 or 3 main candidates to vote for. When you talk, and so in those type of elections, yeah, or even with like a mayoral race or a governor race, yes. But ultimately, again, like if when we end up voting in alignment, that again the conclusion that we reach still isn't the same, and as well as, like I said, I think that voting is the last step in the process anyway, and so it's like even if we get to that same conclusion, how we get there is important.
But isn't that most important in activism is the end game? And the end game is right, whether or not we come from different backgrounds or religious beliefs, that in the end of all our political activism and gerrymandering and everything else that we do, right? And Jeremiah theories and different things like that. Like, how do you see yourself different from any other religious voter when you're aligned to vote with the same candidate, regardless of what your take is, even your position tonight? So unless I say you went against the grain of most religious voters in the last presidential election and you voted for Donald Trump.
Nah, I don't do that. But I think what you're identifying.
So you voted in line with these Democrats,
right? But that
you say are filled with religious voters who don't get us across the finish line, but yet you assimilate yourself within that group And I'm asking the question, you simulate yourself within that group to further what? Your personal preference based on what? Your family, your religious beliefs, or simply just to be a part of, the black in crowd?
I'm an issue voter. So what matters to me is very particular issues. The state of black communities, the education of black people, the income of black people. And so the way that I think about voting isn't like, well, religious people are voting this way, are they moving that way? I understand it from the perspective of who's going to be better for these particular issues. But what you're identifying, the reason why me and other religious individuals may end up in that same spot is the question of the forced choice that we got to deal with a two-party system, right? Because if there were more candidates, more people would vote differently.
Yeah,
but the issue that
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The issue is more so like, because these are black communities and I care about what goes on with black people, right? We fall into the same thing because like black religious people I still care about. Like, even though I'm not as religious as others, I still want to see them strive and be better, right? So from that understanding, but my criticism has more to do with before we go to the ballot. So when we talk about the divisions that are created amongst like black liberation theology and prosperity gospel, when we're strategizing about how to move forward, what policies we should advocate for, and those types of things, when you have the ideological differences of, well, we're trying to strategize politically, but I don't think my fate is linked to that of other black people's.
Got you.
That creates conflict.
Got you. And I understand, and I appreciate you saying that. But then again, as you just said previously, this two-party system that we're forced into, our vote is forced into, regardless of whether political background or religious affiliation we have, we're still forced into mainly this two-party system. I made a statement before, and I'm going to ask it as a question now, Domo. What's the alternative? See, you're not giving us an alternative. You're telling us we need to do this before we get to the polls. But when we get to the polls, Domo, by your own admission, there's only this two-party system. So we either can vote for Trump or we can vote for Biden, or we can simply not vote at all. If you vote for an independent candidate or the Green Party or a QAnon candidate, right? If you vote for one of them, what's going to best benefit blacks, especially in our communities? You know what that usually, at least for the last 30 years, has come down on our side is voting Democratic. For many people in the black community, right? You can make an argument for the wealthier blacks who may vote for the boule, right? Who will vote for black Republicans. But that's less than 1% of black Americans, Domo. So who are we left to vote with? We're only left to vote Democrat, which puts you in line, Domo, which puts you in line with most of the religious voters in this country, black religious voters in this country, Domo. Your only alternative is to vote with the white evangelicals. And I'm sure that's not what you're asking us to do, Domo. So then again, my brother, I appreciate your debate. I even appreciate the question. But this is what we cannot do going forward. And that's take away what we have, what's working, whether it's a little or by a lot, and then give us nothing. We need a Domo party. Give us a Domo party to vote for.
So I think my criticism is more specific to because I think that there is evidence that would argue that lesser of two evils conversation, right? We may not like either one of them, but either you got one is going to be there, right? So we might as well have the lesser of two evils. That's something that I'm sympathetic to. The issue that we have though is that because the black church has been so fundamental to the way that we vote, we haven't changed how we understand everything leading up to that. Like you even pointed out in your speech that the religious engagement is especially important when we talk about local elections. So even outside of like Biden and then when we talk locally, I think that's where we see the biggest impact and the biggest failure of of black religion in terms of black politics, because we are still doing the lesser of two evil things on a local level when we have the ability to create like and advocate for our own politicians, regardless of Democrat or Republican.
Time. All right, Brother Domo, you got the same time, 7 minutes to question Elder Yarah.
All right, Yarah. The first question I want to ask to you is just to be, you know what I'm saying, creating understanding. Does 501c3s allow for churches to advocate for any particular candidate?
On its premise, no, it does not.
It does not. Okay, so this means that what substance can we then get out of sermons that touch on political topics but don't tell us how we should view these things that we're engaging in?
Well, again, as Malcolm says in his Battle of the Bullet speech, right, that even though his religious is personal to him, his vote can't be. It has to be coalesced with those who differ with him in their particular religious beliefs, right? So regardless of whatever background we come from, Domo, we have to find what's important to us as a people, even on a local level. And as I said before, many times throughout this discussion, right? It has to be, we all want to see our kids go to good schools. So should we be voting for school vouchers, or should we be voting to fund more our charter schools? What's the best thing for children?
But can the church actually, like, so example, so the church says we need police reform legislation. Can the church then see the legislation that they put out and then say, no, we don't like that, or yes, that's a good thing? Can they do either one of those things?
They absolutely can speak against legislation. They absolutely can do that. Absolutely. They have no, what they can't do with the 501c3 is campaign. It's campaign.
But they also, it also speaks, 501c3s also speak the legislation, Yarah.
Well, they can't write legislation, but they can
they can't influence the passage of legislation. Right. So that means that they can't tell that.
Well, that's not, let's not do that, Domo, because passing legislation is not going to happen in their congregation, right? That's going to be in the Senate. That's going to be in the governing body who's been elected on the local levels, right? Or state levels or federal levels, right? So that's not influence. That's not a direct influence that they have. But they do have an indirect influence as local voters for the people that they support, their aldermen, the people running in their local communities, their mayors, right? Who do have political influence, right? So Yarah, that's the point though. Even those people, they can't get those people elected. They can't push those people. Like, so if they like, all right, we agree with them, right? They can't do anything to actually put them forth in order for them to be in the position of power.
Ask your questions.
But you wanted to
get questions.
Watch this. So against in the Trump and Biden election, you wanted Biden to win over Trump, right? So again, Domo alone can't get Domo's vote alone can't get Trump out of office or keep him out of office or get Biden into office. You need a collective. So you join yourself to a collective of people, right? Regardless of whether you're like-minded on your religious ideologies, you're like-minded on the local level, because at somewhere in point you have to find out where it trickles down to you that's important to your children, your niece, your auntie, your nephew, or your young brother.
Let's talk about that though. Let's talk about
down the street, right?
So Malcolm said that the time when white people can come into our community and get us to vote for them so that they can be our political leaders and tell us what to do and what not to do is long gone. By that same token, the time when that same white man, knowing your eyes are too far open, can send another Negro into the community and get you and me to support him so he can use him to lead us astray, those days are long gone too. Has the church engaged in any or black religious thought? Has it engaged in anything that allows us to build our own candidates that isn't sent to us, to build our own political leaders that aren't passed down, that people don't say they just gave them that.
I appreciate that, Domo. Well, this is where Brother Malcolm spoke too soon, right? This is where Brother Malcolm spoke too soon, right? Because they wrap Herschel Walker up real nice, got him a nice haircut, got him a nice tailored suit, and that white man propped him right up to them folks in Georgia. And when you looked out there in that crowd, it wasn't Lily White.
Right, but no, I get that. I get that.
So they've continued to send us candidates that look like us to further their agenda. But what did we vote for? What did we vote for? We voted for Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock, right? Who says, even though a 501c3 won't let him campaign from his pulpit, it will be safe to say that many of his parishioners voted for him.
It would be safe to say that.
Right.
But does Raphael Warnock change the ineffective nature of Democrats as a whole?
I would say in the instance in this last race that he was in, because
how did he change? How did he change how we view Democrats in its entirety? We can look at Raphael Warnock and say, all right, he's not Herschel Walker, right? But wouldn't you argue though that we have to have an elevated perspective that's just, well, it's not him, it's him, or it's not this person, it's this person.
We don't necessarily.
Would you not argue that we need to, that in order for our political engagement to evolve, that we need to move outside of that thinking?
I don't necessarily think we have to have this stratospheric political advancement to understand and to know when we go to the polls that we vote for what's best for us. We don't have to have the answers.
But would you say Democrats are what's best for us, though?
The Democrats is what's best for us versus the alternative of this two-party system that you said yourself that we're forced into, Domo.
Right,
so it's rather for us to make an exodus, there go my Bible reference, make an exodus, shout out to Anonymous Hebrew, to our exodus out of the Democratic Party as a whole, as a people, because they're not advancing us enough, or it's not enough substance there, and walk over through the tulips to the Republican Party, or do we just sit on our hands? Or do we just sit on our hands, Domo, and don't go to the vote?
Is the false equivalence, right? It's the false equivalence. Would you not? Do you not believe that that it would be more productive for Black people to detach themselves from the Democrat-Republican paradigm?
No.
Is that not more productive?
No. It's not.
All right, Tom.
Democrats.
It's not more productive.
Right. Tom.
Why is not more productive?
Tom, we're getting ready. Family, we're going to open up the lines. We're going to open up the lines. The link is in the chat. If y'all have a question, you can come in.
You ready to cut, Domo? Let me know.
You can come in and just ask your question. Don't come in to teach. Ask your question. And so I asked Elder Yarah the first question. Brother Yarah.
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that it is important for us to have the church associated with the political, with Black politicians in the debates going up in there?
Absolutely.
And the politicians? Why should that be important?
We've seen that since the abolishment and emancipation of slavery. We've seen that with the AME Church, right? We've seen supportive candidates and pastors. Let me share I really wish I had time. Can I have 3 minutes? I just want to share my screens. It's Black History Month.
Yes, go ahead, brother.
I just want to show something.
And as you're getting it, you don't think, because you can see what we go through when we deal with religion. So can you imagine what the world go through, brother? If you want to bring religion into politics, especially amongst us, we've been serving the law, Christianity, Seventh-day Adventists, Judaism, so many religions. You don't think that will take away from what we really supposed to be doing, Brother Yarah?
No, absolutely not. And this is what I showed in my data earlier. All right, from the Pew Research, right? From
where's your screen at? I don't see it.
For 2020, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me share my screen real quick. From 2020 and 2021, that regardless of our religious affiliations, even atheists are included in that, we still go to the polls and vote in for mostly solidarity. We vote for the same things, right? Can you see my screen?
All right, I need you to be quick because the debate is over.
Yeah, I'm gonna be quick.
And then if Domo want to share his screen, I'm gonna have to let him do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm gonna give you a minute, brother.
Yeah, just give me a minute. Right. I wanted to say this real quick. From times before, I only got a minute. Here it is, right here. I'm wasting my minute. Where my thing go?
No, I ain't started the minute yet. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Here it is, right here. The black church has been getting souls to the polls for more than 60 years, right? It says, but the U.S. Supreme Court eliminating part of the Voting Rights Act in 2013, black church-based voter registration and the turn out the votes campaigns have been hampered by voter suppression. Efforts that have been included new voter ID requirements, the reducing of early voting days, the ending of same-day registration, the disenfranchisement of citizens with felony records, and the closing of over 1,600 poll sites across the nation, right? We have these things were only combated, not by anyone else, not by any government programs, but by religious institutions, right? And the landscape of the 2020 general election has been dotted with the efforts by the black church under slogans including souls to the polls, AME voter alert, and cogent counts. Black denominations and national bodies such as the Conference of National Black Churches have partnered with civil rights organizations, including the NAACP, in a concerted effort to increase voter turnout among African Americans. Now, Domo wants to argue, that's great that they have these programs. It's great that they can get you to the polls, but they can't preach to you from the pulpit about who to vote for. Okay, fine. But we're getting people to the polls. Why? And these things were created, these programs were created in the face of voter suppression. That's a direct Scud missile to racism and white supremacy in this country, right? That was supported and mobilized by black churches. We have to stop saying this stuff, that black churches don't matter in the political affiliation of blacks in this country. It's an argument.
Okay. Brother Domo, you want to respond to that before I open up the lines? Go to the lines.
Yeah, I mean, I can easily concede that, yes, churches get people out to vote. But if y'all don't take anything from what it is that I'm saying in this debate, voting ain't enough. Because if you're voting blindly or just voting just to vote, right, or you're voting without substance, then it's counterproductive. That's what I'm saying. That strategy to voting has been producing diminishing returns. The reason why black people are so detached from Democrats today is because they no longer see the benefit. We can consistently say, yeah, we're getting out the vote. We're getting out the vote. For who is a better question. Like, yes, get out the vote. For whom? What policies are important to us? What things matter to the black communities that we're casting our ballot for? And what happens is the church, like I said, becomes an arm of the Democratic Party as opposed to an arm for political engagement and evolved political thought. We reproduce the same impacts, we reproduce the same circumstances, and then we be like, hey, but we voted. That ain't enough.
All right. Let me get on over to the brother Chad. What's going on, my brother? Peace to you. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Just got a quick question real quick. First of all, good job, y'all. I think both of y'all did good. Great arguments. Like, I think from both sides of the black political spectrum, you know, I hate agreeing with the Hebrews on stuff, but Elder Yarah made a good point as far as like the 501(c)(3)s, because, you know what I'm saying? Like, I work for a nonprofit that's in the political sphere, and I think the importance of it, Domo, is that, like, we don't like side with a political party because we're giving the black people the option to pick what they think would be best. And, you know, Elder Yarah makes a great point, because black people do now, today in 2023, overwhelmingly vote Democrat. But at the same time, right, I think we got to consider too that, like, black people, we just like progressive politics. Like, if you go back to Reconstruction era, we were voting Republican.
All right. What's your question, brother?
Oh, well, my question to y'all too is, like, if all black people could vote, you know what I'm saying? Like if we gave all our brothers that went to jail